Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today we are in Tel Achis, one of the most important cities in the Bible, where the palace of the kings of Judah was located, with great walls and gates and a pagan temple, Abal. However, most of the city hasn't even been excavated yet. I mean, its secrets are still hidden beneath the ground. However, right now there are active archaeological excavations at this site, rediscovering the colossal history of this place. And today we will have the privilege of taking part in these excavations and seeing for the first time objects that have been rediscovered after more than 3,000 years. We are going to get our hands dirty together with a group of Brazilians who are excavating here and revolutionizing the rediscovery of Israel's history. So if you're ready, let's get started. We can already see in the background what look like these tents, these stretched tarps. These are the different excavation areas, but we're going to start with this one here, which is the area next to the palace of the kings of Judah. So come with me. It looks like the team is already there, getting their hands dirty and starting. It's really amazing to see the excavations in action, and even more so knowing that there are Brazilians here. And look who's here right now. Shalom.
Shalom, Malina. Welcome to our excavation. Let me remove my glove to greet you properly. You're very welcome.
Shalom, everyone. Greet archaeologist Rodrigo Silva. Tell us what you and everyone else are doing here now.
Well, this is the excavation of the city of Lachish, or as they say in Hebrew, Larish. Lachish was the second largest city in Judea after Jerusalem in the times of the Holy Bible. So in the time of King Hezekiah and King Josiah, you had Jerusalem and Lachish. It would be like Washington and New York or Brasilia and São Paulo to talk about modern times. And all the kings of Judah passed through here. It's a very rich history. The excavations here originally began in the 1930s.
Nearly 100 years ago.
Of course, it wasn't a continuous activity. There were periods without excavation. Then Dr. Joseph Garfinkel, a professor at the Hebrew University and our guru, resumed the excavations. We're working with the Brazilians and have been excavating here for 3 years, with the team growing. I manage this area and oversee the Brazilians here, plus 2 other areas with Brazilians. We call this area here FF. We use letters and numbers for the areas to identify on the map where we are working.
It's really impressive to think that one of the most important biblical cities is Lachish, and that most of it still hasn't been excavated. So we are in real time seeing history being rediscovered, and with Brazilians even more, really having this affection for our origins. You and I are originally Brazilian. And today we're also going to see all 3 areas. I know you're really busy here, but we're going to visit and take part in the excavations of all 3 areas. And I actually wanted to take this opportunity to ask you if I can join you.
But of course, I'll get a glove for you because safety comes first. Think the way I do, just let me grab a glove for you here.
Hey guys, we're going to get our hands dirty, and you can see that the work here is tough. Wheelbarrow coming through, buckets and buckets of dirt, ceramics, archaeology. And this is a real day at an excavation.
Here are your gloves.
Thank you very much.
To work.
Now that I have my gloves on, tell me, how do we get our hands dirty? How do excavations work in practice?
Well, the first thing we need to understand is that we excavate by quadrants or grids. See? There's one here, another over there, and another. Here's a little known fun fact. This system started with the pioneers of archaeology, who were military men. Many had served in the army and became archaeologists after retiring. And in the army you dig trenches, so with the idea of the trench they came up with the idea of making the quadrants. And you have the middle path, where you can walk with a wheelbarrow. You can walk without disturbing those who are working here. I can walk from here to there along the path.
Because here there are 4 quadrants, but there are archaeological excavations with dozens of quadrants. And that's why this is very important, so you can move around and carry things, the buckets, because there's a lot of manual labor here.
Exactly. We're going to lower down a little here, because here we have the ceramics that we find here. Look, this is a part. You can take it from the base of the ceramic piece.
You mean all of this was found today?
Everything was found today, all of it today.
Look here, look at how many buckets with ceramics there are here.
And why is this important? Because these ceramics give me the date of when this was used. These are ceramics from the late Bronze and Middle Bronze periods. By late Bronze, I mean around 1500 to 1200 before Christ. In other words, you're holding a ceramic piece that's at least 3500 years old.
Imagine this, it was underground for over 3,000 years, and I'm the first, or rather the second person. The archaeologist who found it here is the first person, but I'm one of the first people to touch this ceramic after more than 3,000 years.
When the vase is big, we can restore it, like we see some in the museum. When it's very fragmented, we only use it to determine the period, because by the shape of the vase, you know the time it was made. It's like a car. When you see the brand, you know the model and year. If it's a Korean car, if it's a Japanese car, if it's a German car, if it's an American car, it's the same thing with ceramics.
Exactly. If you ask me what car it is, I'll just say it's black or silver. But people who like cars, who really understand cars, sometimes just see a part of the front of the chassis and they can already tell the model and at least the decade, and they know how to pinpoint it for you exactly. It's years and years and years of study for each archaeologist to be able to easily look at a piece of pottery. And by the type of shape, the way it's fired, the thickness, the person can really understand more about it. And we're talking about the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age, so we're talking about the time of the Exodus and the patriarchal period.
If it's from the late Bronze Age, Exodus. If it's from the Middle Bronze Age, patriarchal period. Now, why the quantity? Because it's not enough to just find a single shard and say, hey, it was the Bronze Age. Because it could be there by accident. Someone might have just dropped something like that. Now, if we have a large quantity, it means it was in use. Here's what we have. I'll explain shortly so you can try it yourself. Here we have a wall from the Bronze Age, all right? And what was up here? There was a large courtyard here. During Israel's monarchy in the Iron Age, also known as the period of the kings of Judah. So, while Josias and Ezekias were living, their palace was right next to here. Not that they lived here, it was more like a government public building. There was a floor here, this floor was removed, and underneath it is an older structure from the Bronze Age. We have a brick wall here, see? And here?
Yes, the brick wall is very typical of the Canaanite period.
Exactly.
We see brick walls in Hatzor, in other Canaanite cities. So here we are seeing a brick wall and also some.
These are bones already found here. This matters because in addition to observing the local fauna, we can see what animals they ate. In Herbet Keafa, they didn't find any pig bones, and at the other site, there were a lot of pigs. So it was discovered that the people who lived in Herbet Keafa didn't eat pork, so they were
Jews.
Exactly. Here is the pottery you'll start working on, and over there is some cool pottery that's just begun to be excavated. It will be kept on site because everything is photographed, documented, and we take it out, we separate the buckets. Everything is very well labeled, as you can see. And now we have Adriana here, who is Brazilian, right? She can offer guidance, such as asking, do you clean here? I'm on the other side.
All right, let's get to work. Thank you very much, Rodrigo. And everywhere we look, guys, there's archaeology popping up. You can see here, look, this piece of pottery right here. Look, clearly coming out. There's one here. There's one on the ground too. This here, look, is another pretty big piece of pottery. And that's why there's so much here that everything has to be done in the smallest details, cataloged, organized, everything. There's a very clear methodology because you not only need to find things, but mainly to understand what you're finding. And Adriana, who's here with us, will help me explain what our next mission is, what's the next step for this quadrant, for this little square.
Our goal here is to uncover this wall, to find out where it's going. So we're going to, since we've started finding large ceramics, we're not going to lower the level any further, but we'll keep this level until the end of the walls so that we can understand the extent of the wall.
Here around us, you can see the people already with pickaxes and hoes. They're loosening the soil here, and this soil around me has already been loosened. And then we use shovels to scoop it up and put it in the bucket. And it's important that before we put it in, we check if there are any important things inside and here. One of the things we found is a small piece of pottery, much smaller than what we saw before. But we put it here in the bucket. So again, here we put the pieces of pottery in the bucket. And here, look, let me show you up close. This here is an animal bone. You can see that it's a bit porous like bone. And we also keep the animal bone, but in a separate bag. So this is the bag for animal bones. And the rest of the things go into the bucket, and that's how we do it. Under my feet is the original floor from the Canaanal period. And here, look, we can see a huge amount of ceramics. Look here, a big accumulation of ceramics. Look here, they're literally almost falling because there are so many here. And the question is, why is there such a large concentration of ceramics here? And one of the theories is that this could be some kind of ancient kitchen. This still needs analysis and will be published by archaeologists like Rodrigo Silva. But because of the floor they found here, the amount of everyday pottery with lots of bones, animals, and ashes, it could really be that this was a kitchen where they prepared food. And really, it's amazing to see how much pottery comes out of this place. And most of the pottery we saw earlier in the buckets. Look, all this pottery here, most of these buckets, all pottery, came out of just this small space. So what will probably be done in the future is that they will keep digging here in this direction and take out buckets and buckets and buckets from here. A gigantic amount of archaeology. And it's something incredible to be able to see all of this here for the first time in 3,000 years coming out and emerging from the earth. Guys, let me show you Alcimara here as well, who's getting her hands dirty. We've known each other from several of our trips. She joined the Israel trip with Aline. But today you were responsible for some important finds, so I want you to show us what you found.
Look.
Wow.
A bone.
That we don't know which animal it belongs to yet. Look how beautiful. This one strap here.
And everything.
Did you find all of this here today?
Here now.
Here now. And I know that earlier today you also found a piece of...
It's an ox.
It's an ox. I want to show it. I really want to show this ox because it's not just any ox.
It's an ox.
So I'll give it back to you here. And just one important thing. Alcimara found all of this, but none of it belongs to her. Because the law of Israel says that all archaeology found, regardless of where and by whom, all archaeology belongs to Israel. Everything here is sorted, catalogued, and belongs to Israel's Ministry of Antiquities. So she will have the honor of having her name in the findings, but it actually belongs to Israel. Now I will show you the ox. Come with me. I'm even going to take off my gloves because we're arriving at the table where all the most important findings are kept and catalogued. So I'll just leave it here in the corner. And look at this little bag here. Look, you can see that it's already catalogued exactly with the date it was found and in which quadrant it was found. And the most important thing is that you can see this find, which in my opinion is spectacular because it fits perfectly in the Bible. Here is the eye and here is the ox's horn. This here is part of the head of an ox from the Canaanite period. And why is this so important and significant? Because we know that in the Canaanite period, oxen and calves were worshipped here in the region, especially the ox specifically was represented. A god named El was a pagan god from the same pantheon as Baal and Asherah. So this was probably an object of worship, of paganism from the Canaanite period. And once again, here it is being revealed. But it's very important for us to keep it here so it can be taken for study. Look everyone, what he just found is an oil lamp that was used to light up some of the rooms here. I'm going to put my gloves back on so I can get back to work. She's going to take all this soil here, from which they've already removed all the important archaeological finds, and throw it in the discard area. I'll show you how. I'll show you how it's done. Let's go. Everyone is going to breakfast now, so we're also going to take a little break and enjoy breakfast with them. And let's really see what a real day is like. At an archaeological excavation, let's go. We've arrived at the other tent. Now we're going. First thing, wash our hands to get rid of some of this dust that's all over us. Come on. Here, thank you. Here, help the technician. And now we're going to take this opportunity to have breakfast, and it's a very Israeli breakfast. Here, it's not like Brazil. Here, people eat salad for breakfast. Here we have cabbage, lettuce, tomato, cucumber, and tuna, a typical Israeli breakfast. So let's enjoy it, and then we'll get on with some hard work. And here we are at the end of Tel Aquis at the cliff. Look at this steep descent here. And right here from this cliff is the second part of the archaeological excavations, which we're going to go down to now. But be very careful, Moti the cameraman. Be very, very careful. Because here there are really more challenges than just digging. Shalom. It's so nice to speak Portuguese here in Israel. I want to know what you thought was cool today. Tell us.
We found it 5 minutes ago. I read it, and they're the perfect combination. It's probably something we used to heat up food because of this mark, so it doesn't have a mark that brings a darker part in the middle, and they fit together perfectly. Look here.
Wow. So how old is this jar handle?
Around 1200 before Christ.
Now it turned into the really interview show. Rosemary has more findings to show us. Can you tell us what you found?
I found that jar over there, which we still can't remove from the wall.
Let's go check it out.
Because it will have to be documented first. He's here. He's still stuck here.
Look, you can clearly see Jaro's mouth here. The archaeological excavations at this site reveal a lot of truly amazing things to us. And they're also connected to other biblical stories. And this place has a very strong connection with Jericho. So I want to show this to you. First, this wall behind me is an original wall. They're excavating where a house once stood. So if we look here, there's a large amount of ash. This was probably the kitchen of the house. They used to cook here, which is why there are so many jars. Everything they cooked and made was here. But the question is, what sense does it make to live on the cliff? To live so close to the edge of the city? On one hand, we might think, look at the beautiful view they could have from here, but in biblical times, their priority wasn't having a nice view. It was being in a strategic location. The palace is located in the city's strategic spot. We want to be as central and as high in the city as possible. The people who lived here on this cliff were probably middle class, lower middle class people. They were simple people's homes. And how does it work here? They found down here a wall from the end of the Bronze Age, from the biblical time of the Judges. It is also believed that there is probably a second wall on top. So here are two walls, and between these walls, there are houses. Here, between these walls, The people who lived were simple people without the financial means to buy a good house in the city center. And this reminds us of Jericho. If we remember Rahab, it is written that Rahab lived in the wall. When it says that she lived in the wall, it's not literally in the wall, but probably between the walls. Was this found during Jericho's archaeological digs? An outer wall and an inner wall, and between one wall and the other, it's a more exposed part of the city where simpler people lived. So yes, here it was a house of a family that lived on the wall. A period a little after Rahab, but she probably lived in a house very similar to this one. We are now arriving at our last area of archaeological excavations. But before that, let's remember the story of Lachish. It was a city that had a very important context during times of wars and conquests. We remember, for example, Joshua during the period of the Judges. When the people of Israel entered the Promised Land, Lachish already existed, but it was a Canaanite city and it needed to be conquered. And indeed, he manages to conquer it, and for centuries. The city then belongs to the unified kingdom of Israel and later to the kingdom of Judah. And we know that it becomes the second most important city in the entire kingdom of Judah. It was second only to Jerusalem, the capital, and the Bible tells us that Rehoboam fortified the city. He prepared it for wars because it also provided protection. Jerusalem is just a few kilometers from here. And now that we've talked about these two stories related to wars and conflicts here in Lachish, what did we come to look for? What are they also looking for here in the archaeological excavations? The city walls exactly from these two periods. And what they found fits very well with what is described in the Bible. Come here with me. It's really fascinating. Look here, there are several layers from different periods. But what you see here behind me is the remains of a mud brick wall from the Canaanite period. And right below here we can see that it's black. Look here, mixed ashes. This here is a burned layer, which means this Canaanite city was burned and destroyed, which fits very well with the biblical description from the time of Joshua, who conquered and burned this city. So there's a chance. Archaeologists think maybe this might be the layer they call number 6, which is the layer from the time of Joshua. And down here on the side, a great wall begins. It's 5 meters wide. It's really very reinforced. And this wall is from the Iron Age, which is exactly from the time of Rehoboam. And it could be the wall that the Bible tells us he built. And here, surrounded by biblical archaeology, I want to say goodbye to you and come back to get even more hands-on to help the story of Jesus Lachish and the biblical story as a whole to be rediscovered. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next week.